The island of Sodor is a very special place indeed. There are lots of different forms of transportation: road, bus, tractor, and railway. Among many others, of course, but railway is the most popular. You can see lots of engines hard at work, like Thomas, who always cheers everyone up. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the island of Sodor.
5 easy pieces. It was a busy time on the island of Sodor. The Sodor River Bridge was being rebuilt. Thomas was very excited. He had been chosen to help the builders. Thomas felt very busy, very confident, very happy, and very proud. Thomas was at the yards. He looked at his special. "This is the last delivery of special blocks, and I'm taking them myself," he hooted. "Thomas, there are no more special blocks like these anywhere. You must take care and puff very carefully." "Yes, sir," smiled Thomas. "Please arrive to the bridge before tea time." Thomas puffed away very confidently and very slowly. Thomas arrived to a junction. Whiff was waiting and humming quietly. "On the way to the waste dump." Thomas heard a loud squeak. It was coming from his brakes. "Oh, no, Thomas. Your brakes don't sound good. Can I take your load for you?" "No, thank you," whistled Thomas. "I can do it all on my own." Thomas didn't want anyone else to have the special of pulling the special blocks to the Sodor River Bridge. "I'd be happy to help you," said Whiff. "The river bridge is on my way to the waste dump anyhow." "You can't cross it. It's under repair," smiled Thomas anxiously, and he puffed away. Thomas arrived to the top of a hill. He could see that it was a long slope down. It sloped downward down the hill. Thomas puffed very slowly. His truck started biffing him. "Stop!" Thomas tried to apply his brakes, but it was no use. They weren't working properly. The screech was even louder than it was before. "Slow down, Thomas. You'll never make it round the bend," cried Emily. Thomas's load hit a bump in the track and it came right off of his flatbed. Thomas didn't know. Later on, Thomas puffed to the top of another hill. "I'll puff more carefully," he thought to himself. Thomas started down the line. The trucks pushed him again. "Stop!" he cried. He applied his brakes, but they still weren't working properly. Gordon was puffing up the hill. "Slow down, Thomas!" Thomas whooshed into the emergency siding and biffed the buffers. His load toppled off of the next freight car with a bump, but Thomas still didn't notice. He was still worried about his squeaking brakes. Thomas started again once more for the bridge, slower and much more carefully. "I must be more cautious," he thought to himself. Thomas arrived at the bridge. "Hooray! I'm here with the final special delivery." But Thomas was now going too fast to stop safely. He tried to apply his brakes, but they wouldn't work. His driver didn't know what to do. "Help! I can't stop. What shall I do?" Thomas clanked off the rails. His load splashed and splooshed into the water. "Oh no! I've lost some of the special blocks." "No, Thomas," cried a workman. "You have lost them all." Thomas looked back behind him. He could see that his trucks were empty. "Oh no, I've been a very redundant engine," he whistled. "I need help now." Stanley had chains attached between him and Thomas, and he pulled Thomas back to safety. It was a hard job, but luckily Stanley is strong. "Stanley, I need your help." Thomas remembered all the bumps in the tracks and the trucks constantly pushing him. "Maybe the loads came off when I hit the bumps in the tracks and I couldn't stop because of my squeaking brakes," whistled Thomas. He remembered puffing over the first bump, then the next bump by Gordon. Stanley, will you help me, please? Of course, Thomas. So Thomas and Stanley puffed up the line with Gavin and Rocky to help collect the special blocks for the Sodor River Bridge. Everywhere they went, Rocky started to lift the blocks back onto Thomas's flatbeds. "Oh no, Thomas," whistled Emily. "Poor you, I told you to slow down," but Thomas paid Emily no mind and worked with Stanley, Gavin, and Rocky for the rest of the day. Thomas, Stanley, Gavin, and Rocky arrived to the other end of the hill. They were working hard, and they were puffing very quickly. They had to get the trucks to the bridge in time. "Hooray! There are the blocks!" "Here's where I hit the buffers with a mighty biff," whistled Thomas. Thomas and Stanley moved into position for Rocky to load the blocks back onto Thomas's flatbeds. Thomas was very pleased. Rocky craned the other blocks out of the water. "Thank you," said Gavin. "We have to go back to the yard." "Thank you, Gavin. Thank you, Rocky," smiled Thomas. Thomas watched his two friends puff away. "Now, I must take these blocks to the bridge, and I must get you to the yards to have your brakes checked," whistled Stanley. And Stanley puffed away with Thomas and the blocks. They arrived back at the yard just in time. Thomas was very proud as he watched his good friend Stanley puff off for the bridge, slowly and carefully. "Thank you, Stanley. I was very silly not to have taken your help when given. Thank you." Workmen arrived to look at Thomas's wheels. They examined them anxiously. "My brakes make a terrible squeak. Please mend them in time." "Look, Stanley, my brakes are mended." "Well done, Thomas. What do you think of the bridge? It's mended too." "I think you've mended it nicely," whistled Thomas. "With the 5 easy pieces. We built it bit by bit, bits and pieces," smiled Stanley. "Let's go home," smiled Thomas. Thomas and Stanley puffed away, slowly and carefully. Has someone ever offered you help and you didn't take it due to your arrogance and cockiness? Once, my friend Melody was given a very special at Christmas time. She was to take Christmas banquets and presents to Wolfstead Castle. Salty asked her if she needed help, but she didn't want to share her special. Later on, at the tunnel, Hero asked her for some help. She didn't accept the help, and she charged up the hill all on her own. Then she had a dream what it would be like if she didn't take the engine's help, and because she was dreaming, this led to trouble. Melody was racing down the line as quickly as she could to get the load delivered on time, and she wasn't being careful, and she whooshed right into a snowbank. There was a mighty biff into the snow. Snow burst everywhere. The load was a mess, and Melody felt very silly indeed. "Bust my buffers!" But luckily, Melody had her friends to help her. She has very good friends indeed. See you next time.